Hello there, good folks. Dr. Charlie here. Let's take our 3 deep breaths and dive right in today. Breathe in and release. Breathe in and release. One more time, take a deep breath into the bottom of your belly. Hold it for a second and release. We are still working on this odd camera angle at the moment. What's been on my heart and on my mind today is the idea of equity. And equity is a buzzword right now with diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm not sure that we fully grasp the depths at which equity really does show up. There are obvious things I would call explicit rather. Things like working, men being paid higher than women, being paid higher than people of color. I think that's the obvious one. That's where we're hearing about it a lot, but also equity in workplaces and the idea of maybe family leave and being accommodating as a workplace for the actual needs of the people who work for you. But equity also shows up in far less explicit ways, in more implicit ways. The idea of adoption, the idea of charity, to whom is charity being given and from whom is it being given? And there's ideas that underlie that, as well as missionary work. Those are some of the more implicit ways, and all 3 of those notions, as along with many others, are actually based on the idea of white saviorism. And that is white folks finding themselves, well, I've talked about this in a different video. It's not really a superiority complex if you have to cheat to win. It's really an inferiority complex, but taking that inferiority complex and making it writ large in many aspects of daily life as well as the global world at large. So those three institutions, if you think about who gets adopted, who does most of the adopting, and where that comes from. If you think about missionary work, same thing. The idea behind missionary work is to bring people to your particular religion. And generally, these are people who are maybe considered less sophisticated than you might consider yourself or might be considered at large. As well as the idea that charity and all of these things, both of those things actually, adoption and missionary work, can both fall under a very large, wide umbrella of charity. But just the idea that someone needs saving from, and you are the person to save them, that is not equitable. If it were truly equitable, if we really looked at equity in the long run, true equity would mean that the people, the families who got wealthy and are now considered old money based on the labor and brilliance of people who were enslaved, of Black people who were enslaved, then distributing that wealth amongst the descendants of the slaves. And that's unlikely to happen at an individual or familial level. It's may not be likely to happen at even a societal level, with reparations as a large, widespread thing. I know that they're introducing some legislation at a more local level, at a state level, and we'll see. There's going to be a lot of resistance to an actual reparations package coming from the United States government. So the idea of equity then plays into all of that. It plays into the idea of, do we really find ourselves equal? And what would it have to change in me? What would I have to change in order to offer true equity and offer and sort of participate in true equity. It means that at my points of privilege, I may have to step down. At my points of privilege, I may have to say, this is not a space for me. This is, in order for it to truly be equitable, I have to remove myself from perhaps some important aspects of my own life, and then have to rework that and figure out what the emotional fallout of that would also be. So those are some thoughts for today. As we move about our day, I want you to remember to breathe. If anything, if this is causing a lot of emotion in you to have to rethink this, do seek support. Do take a few moments to breathe intentionally. Feel where that's showing up in your body and squeeze it back as if you were giving it a hug, and then breathe through it from there. And of course, you can always reach out to me on my website, Dr. Charli Brown, or even here on social media, wherever you are watching this. Until we meet again, I want you to take great care.